so tall I had to turn it.
Well, good evening, everybody, to this most unusual service tonight we're having. First of all, I want all of my friends on the front row to know you are not in the principal's office. Okay? I'm not here to yell at you and browbeat you. I'm here to welcome you to the service this evening. Want to know y'all are here because we love y'all. That's it. And I'm not going to be doing, I want to share something though with you that I think might help you. And adults too. This is really for everybody. But many of y'all, and a lot of times our young people, are going through a lot right now. You guys have more pressure on you than I did at that age. And I think everybody knows that. And a lot of times the stuff you're going through is more than you really ought to deal with. Really, it's true. And a lot of times you don't know who to talk to about it. And certainly most of the time, and a lot of adults in here can relate to this too. You don't think anybody's ever been through it before, what you're going through. And that's okay to feel that way. But nearly everything that all of us are going through tonight is due to choices that we make, good or bad. And the Bible is a book that is full of choices. The world we live in is full of choices. Every morning when you get up, you have a choice to make. Some of the things we're going through is due to poor choices, either made by you or your parents. And parents, I want you to listen carefully to what I'm going to tell you. The choices you make right now will affect your children for the rest of their lives.
Absolutely.
You can spend the rest of your years in either joy or great regret, depending on what you do. We'll let y'all in on a little secret about kids, because my baby will be 35 years old this year, so I can do this now. Your children will not listen to you. I'm going to tell you up front, your children will not listen to you. They will imitate you. That's what they do. Your kids aren't going to listen to what you have to say. They will do what you do. That's just the way it is. And quite often their children are a reflection of their behavioral patterns. Not always, but many times they are. And young people, this does not absolve any of you from responsibility for what you do. Because when we do things now, we have to deal with it later. Everybody in here will stand before God one day and give an account for what each of us individually did. So you all have choices to make, good or bad. And like I said earlier, the Bible is full of choices. It says to choose this and don't choose that, and so forth and so on, for a reason. God is not here to spoil your fun. He's here to save your life. Amen. And save your soul, ultimately, and give you a really good life. The Bible is full of people, and that's why the Bible is real, because if I was going to write the Bible, I wouldn't put the bad stuff in there that people did. Right. I'd want everybody to look good. But the Bible tells about some people that made poor choices and that made good choices. The first ones are Adam and Eve. I know you've been told that that's a fairy tale, but now scientists are finding out that we all came from one man and one woman several thousand years ago. They know that to be a fact. And it was two people on the earth, Adam and Eve. Now think about this for a moment. When they were first made, they had everything but a belly button. They didn't need one, okay? They were created from the dust of the ground. They had perfect bodies. never had to work. I like that. They never got sick. They were not supposed to ever die. They had everything they wanted. Lived in a paradise. They had everything they wanted but one thing. And that was that stupid tree of knowledge that sat right there in the middle of the garden that they were supposed to leave alone. And Satan knew it. You ever been that way? You ever had everything the world you wanted but one thing, and you knew you weren't supposed to have it, and the devil kept after you and after you to get it? Well, they listened to the devil. And the decisions that they made affected all of us. Anybody in here been sick before?
Yeah.
Some of us sick now, I reckon. Even the ugly got inherited from that. But seriously, if you, he got that, okay, that's good. If you have a disease or if you've ever been sick, it was because of the decisions that Adam and Eve made that were wrong. And we're paying for it. 6,000 years later. It affected man throughout all generations. And even nature fell. Even the animals fell. And were doing things they weren't supposed to do. The Bible says that even nature itself groans to be redeemed by God. And the only way that can be done is through Christ. Now, Jonah. I can relate to Jonah. Jonah was told by God to go preach to a city called Nineveh, where there were several 100,000 people in that city. The city was so big it was 60 miles wide. That's from here to the other side of Roanoke. That's a big city. He told him to go and preach just one thing, just one sentence to him. And he said no. He wasn't going to do it. And so you know what he did? He tried to run from God. Have you ever heard anything more ignorant than that? He got on a boat and thought he could go hide from God. You know God's over town too. A lot of times we think we can go do something over town. God's over town too. He ain't just here. And after all the agony of disobeying, he finally obeyed, and several 100,000 people turned to the Lord. I can relate to that because I ran from God for 10 years. I was still in church, but I was running from God. And I refused to do what he told me to do. I knew what he told me to do. He told me when I was 17 years old what he wanted me to do, and I said, no, I've got other things I want to do. And I did all kinds of stuff except that until he finally got me. And I don't want to tell you what I had to go through to where I finally said, all right. Then there was another one. Another two people. David, the greatest king that ever lived, and a woman named Bathsheba. David saw a married woman bathing on the rooftop near him. He was watching her when he was supposed to have been with his soldiers at war. There he was home, laying on his bed, and then when he got up, he goes there and looks, and there she was. What subject am I going to talk about here? Sex. Yeah, it's not a dirty word. A lot of people don't know this, but God invented it.
Amen.
Let's not yell amen too loud here. But seriously, sex was invented by God to be awesome, amazing, and wonderful. But only to be enjoyed between a man and a woman who have committed their lives together for life in marriage. And when we change that, and so many people have, what a mess we make. And it can also be one of the most dangerous things in the world. Let me show you one of the most dangerous things in the world. Oh, you ever seen one of these?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody ever watched World War II combat movies?
Yes.
Let's make sure that we got
Play the game though.
They usually fire about 450 rounds per minute, and they hold 30 rounds of 45 ACP, and it'll cut a wall down in just a matter of seconds. Some people call this a weapon of mass destruction. It's really not that bad, but it is pretty dangerous. To use sex outside of God's plan is far more dangerous thing, and especially when you're really young, than if I was to take and load this thing with 30 rounds and take it back there to the kids, wrap the bolt and hand it to them and say, have at it, kids, have some fun with us tonight. First person out that door would be Donna.
The first ship will be
And they would do it. Somebody would get shot. Why? Because they don't know what they're doing. You have to be trained to shoot this bad boy right here. You have to know what you're doing. You just can't spray and pray and hope you hit something. But this is an extremely dangerous weapon. However, sex is more dangerous than that, and I'm going to tell you why. David saw, well, let me back up. I was a lawman for 14 years. I sat in the courtroom as a bailiff and listened to cases. I dealt with the prisoners. 75% in the 14 years I was there of all capital murders was over sex. Not anything else. The only one other one that I sat in on was over a drug deal that went bad. The rest of it was over sex. Somebody was sleeping with somebody, they came home, or they went out and saw them sleeping with somebody else, they drew a gun and killed everybody, and except themselves, and they wound up going to prison for the rest of their life. I know two guys right now sitting in prison, they'll never get out. They went in the 80s, 40 years ago. They'll never get out. They got double life. Never had a traffic ticket, never committed any crime, except they snapped when they saw somebody having sex with somebody that they were having sex with. They snapped. It ain't worth it. Is it worth going to prison for 40, 50 years over that? But it can sure happen. Now let's go back to David. David saw Bathsheba, and he had to have her, even though he was married too. He had her brought to him and he slept with her, and her husband was one of David's most loyal soldiers. But she got pregnant by David. It don't take but one time, and that's a done deal. And so he tried to get Uriah, her husband, to sleep with her, but he refused because everyone else was at war, and so David put him on the front line and told his men, pull back when Uriah is on the front line so he can get killed, and he did. David did that to cover it up because what David did was a capital crime, and he tried to cover it up. And the prophet Nathan caught him. As a result, the baby died. And God told him that the sword would never leave his house for the rest of his life. Although God forgave David and he was still the greatest king, the rest of his life would be troubled. He even lost his son Absalom. And if you want to see the saddest, gut-wrenching thing, listen to David crying for his son who was killed by his own men. Absalom. You see, here's the problem with sin, any kind of sin. God makes provision for the forgiveness. He makes every provision for the forgiveness of sins, but none for the consequences. What we do, we have to deal with. And a lot of us are paying for something we did years and years ago. Still are, and we will for the rest of our life. Now, there were some people who made good decisions, and they were tough. The decisions they made were very, very tough. The Bible is full of stories of God putting his followers to the test in ways that we cannot even imagine in today's world. Or maybe some of us can. While the stories of the Bible can sometimes seem frozen in a different time, they give us an opportunity to learn valuable lessons, and really things haven't changed that much. Let's think about a man named Joseph, who was Jesus' stepdad. You don't see a whole lot about Joseph in the Bible. Just a few places where he's mentioned. In today's world, blended families is the norm. Whether it's divorce, death, or other circumstances, and many families are full of step-siblings, half-siblings, step-parents, step-grandparents, and all of that mixed together. But one of the best-known non-biological fathers was Joseph, the husband of Mary. Imagine this. Joseph is looking forward to Mary becoming his wife. He was engaged to her. And then he found out she was already pregnant. And by the way, the penalty of that in those days was death by stoning. Joseph didn't want to do that to her. And the father of the child that was on its way was God himself. Joseph decided to accept what he heard from Mary and the angels that appeared to him telling him about it. And he stepped up and he committed his life to parenting a child that was not his. And it was no normal upbringing either. He had to run and flee with Mary and the baby into Egypt to protect their safety. And it was so much that went on that he had to go through. But he did it. And he did the right thing. And he made the right choice, as hard as it was. Then the Apostle Paul. He probably had one of the hardest ones. It's probably the best conversion story in the New Testament, where Paul transforms from an enemy of the church. There was nobody that hated Christians and hated the church worse than Paul. His original name was Saul of Tarsus. He went around arresting Christians, putting them in jail, and having them killed just because they were Christians. But on the road to Damascus to go arrest people, he met up face to face with Jesus and he got saved. And so Paul made the hard decision to take back what he had done and his criticism of Christianity, and he had to suffer with people being paranoid about him from both sides. He was despised by the Jews who were once his allies. And then Christians doubted him. When he'd come to town to preach, they'd go, "Oh, that's the one that was having us arrested. I ain't going nowhere near him." I had a friend that got saved some years ago that was so bad that people would come to see him just see if it was real. They couldn't believe it. He could get saved. And so Paul put up with everybody's suspicions from both sides and all the gossip. And he wound up being the greatest church planter that ever lived. Nobody ever planted more churches and taught more people and trained more people than Paul. And they tried to kill him. His enemies did, over and over. Here's the thing today. It's easy to fear losing your friends and your family due to differing beliefs, whether it's religious, political, or otherwise. And we're living in a country where, at the moment, free belief is protected, but we can still learn from Paul because everybody turned against Paul when he made it. Last one I'm going to share with you is a guy named Joshua. He served Moses as his assistant for years. And he stood his ground for what was right, even when no one else would. They sent them to spy into the promised land, and him and Caleb went with everybody, and everybody came back crying, whining, "We can't go in there. There's giants, and there's this, and there's that." And not a one of them got to go except Joshua and Caleb. So when Moses died, God gave Joshua the leadership over the whole nation of Israel. And he called them together, and this is what he said to them, and this is one of the toughest things. He recounted everything that God had done for them. And I want y'all to think for a moment everything God's done for you. The mere fact that you are sitting here tonight tells me God has done something big for you already. Because he didn't have to let you be here tonight. You could be dead, or in jail, or somewhere else. But you have that chance one more time while you're sitting here to fix whatever's going on in your life. He recounted to the people about how God had won all the battles against them against all odds. He recounted how that God had delivered them from the enemy and did miracles to save them. Many of y'all have had a close call and you don't even know it. Let me give you a modern day close call. About, 5 years ago, maybe, I bought that Jeep that I have out there. And I couldn't wait to take a trip in it. And so our maiden voyage of the Jeep was to Busch Gardens. On the outside, we go to Williamsburg. Well, once you get on 64 and you're going 75, 80 miles an hour going down that way, all of a sudden we ran up on a construction sign in the road. And it showed that the road was going to go this way and that way, and they waited till you were right up on top of it. And so you barely had time to hit the brakes, especially as fast as I was going anyway. And just as I started nailing the brakes to slow down, I looked behind me at a big tractor trailer coming right up on their tail. And it was close enough to where I could see the look of horror on the driver's face. He was scared to death. His mouth was open. I don't know if he was screaming or what, because he was going to hit us and kill us at the speed he was going. And I only had time to look in the rearview mirror and said, "Oh, Lord, Donna, he's going to hit us." And all of a sudden, something grabbed our Jeep, shoved it about 100 yards down 64. And it wasn't that little 3.7 V6 in there did that either, I can tell you that right now. Something shoved it fast. And I get chills every time I think about it. And I looked up in the rear view mirror and I saw the truck able to stop and able to slow down. And so every one of y'all are in here tonight by something that fixed it to where you could be here, and you may not even known it. I was fortunate enough to see it because God knew I'd never shut my mouth about it. And if you don't believe me, just ask Donna and she'll be glad to talk to you about it. And so he had recounted how God had won all the battles and how he had delivered them from the enemy and did miracles to save them. And how he had given them a land to go to that was beautiful, rich, and they said that the grapes in that land they were going to were so huge that you had to carry one bunch of grapes between two men on a pole to walk with them. I've never seen anything like that. All they could have dreamed of, and now Joshua gives them a choice, like I'm going to give all of y'all tonight. He told them this: "Now therefore fear the Lord, and serve him in sincerity and in truth." And then he told them to do this: "Put away the gods which your fathers served." What other God is in your life tonight that is more important than God himself? Is there one? Put it away. Put away the gods which your fathers served on the other side of the flood and in Egypt, and serve the Lord. And then he told everybody this: if it seems evil to you to serve the Lord, choose this day who you're going to serve. Whether the gods which your fathers served that were on the other side of the flood, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you dwell. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Amen. I'm glad beyond everything that I made that decision when I was 27 years old. I wish I had made it when I was 17. I'm still going to church, doing everything that everybody else did, but I wasn't doing what God told me to do. And I blew 10 years of it running from Him. Let me save you some time. Don't run. Because He'll let you carry it a good little ways. And then He'll let you swallow it hook, line, and sinker. And then God will yank the rope, the sinker, the anchor, the boat, and the motor. And He'll put you off your feet to where you will listen to Him. I was on the side of the road while traffic going up and down the road beside my car on my knees going, oh, yelling at God, all right, I'll do it, all right, I'll do it. And I did. I did what He told me to do. I never turned my back ever since then, but I wished I had not lost that 10 years of what I could have done. So listen to what He has to say and follow Him. The rules are not that bad. And the rules that He gives us in the Bible is to keep us alive, to keep us healthy, and mainly to save our souls. Because let's face it, when I was a teenager, I thought I was going to live forever. I never thought about what could happen until one night I was coming down Route 29 near Sweetbriar College, and a 68 or 69 Dodge Polara went by me at 140 miles an hour. State trooper right behind me. I've never seen nothing go that fast. It ran up a bank and it hit a tree right through the driver's side window. The car, which was one of the biggest cars you've ever seen, wrapped right around that tree. And the trooper got up there and the driver was wrapped around the tree. He was dead. The boy that was in the back seat, there was just barely enough room for maybe a cat to be in there, and they managed to get him out. He lasted about 5 minutes. They were both under 18 years old. They had no idea. They were here from Baltimore, going toward Lynchburg. They had no idea. They thought they could just outrun the cops that night and have a little fun. The scar is still on that tree from 1974. Still there. And I realized how short life is. You could be gone just like that tomorrow. So don't think you got forever to live. So I'm going to tell you, and this is all I'm going to do, choose today who you're going to serve. Choose today. And if only one person in here chooses, then I feel like I did what I was supposed to do tonight. But we pray for all of y'all. Y'all always, because y'all are not just the future church, y'all are the church.
Amen.
Y'all are just as important as me or him or her or any of y'all. Just as important. Don't ever think you're a second-class citizen or that you're the church of tomorrow. You're church of today. Y'all are just as important. And so it's important that you make the right decision, because if the Lord tarries, y'all are going to take over one day. Y'all will be the leaders. And it would be such a better thing if you could do it with less scars and less baggage than a lot of us already have. I would much rather see you go into it with that. And so that is something I want you to think really, really hard about. If anybody has any questions, you can come and see me. You can see Nikki. You can see Roger, Pete, anybody in here. Nikki and Nick and Omer or anybody, or talk to Norm in the back there, even though he's got pink hair.
Yeah.
He's actually a pretty sensible fellow. You can talk to Shannon or Heather, ladies. Y'all talk to them if you want. There's a whole bunch of us here be glad to share with you and talk with you, because we've been through a lot of the stuff you're going through. We have. We've been there. And we'd love to share it with you.